Could the St. Louis Blues make any more trades? I'll talk about this coming up here on Locked On Blues.
Hey, this is Bryn Chen. Subscribe to Lock On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk about could any more trades happen with the Blues now that the freeze is going to be lifted, okay? So we have that to talk about. We have the Nashville Predators and their preview for taking on the Blues tonight here in Enterprise. And of course, Are We Feeling Blue? My favorite Friday segment where I ask you, the listeners, was this a good week or a bad week for the St. Louis Blues? We have so much to get into on today's episode, but first I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So let's talk about trades, okay? Because I talk to you, my friends here on this podcast, about the fact that I could see potential trades, okay? And here's the thing. At 12:01 a.m. tomorrow, so Saturday morning technically, the freeze will be lifted. So that is the annual holiday roster freeze. It will come to an end. And that means that teams can make trades as they prepare for the March 7th trade deadline. Now, the reason why I bring this up is I was actually a little surprised over the trade of P.O. Joseph to the Pittsburgh Penguins for future considerations. I wasn't expecting that, honestly, and I expected at least the Blues to get something in return, but I get it. It's getting rid of money, freeing up some cap space. I get it. However, there are other teams right now in the NHL that have been trading their players like crazy. Like the New York Rangers have made a lot of trades. And I think that's one of those things where I look at that team and I think, could the Rangers potentially make a trade for one of our guys? And then I get to thinking, probably not. Another team, too, is the Buffalo Sabres. So right now, they're 13 games without a win. That is right. Oh, wait, no, it ended. No, it ended, actually. But they were on a 13-game losing streak. So, again, they might be a team, too, where they might want to free up some players. And at the end of the day, I don't think that they have essentially what it takes. Okay, so... the Islanders too, they're another team that I could see making some moves. Here's the thing. Without having Matt Barzal and Anthony Duclair, they have been struggling, right? But again, Brock Nelson, he's another player too that I would take a look at. Then we have our friends that we're playing tonight, the Nashville Predators, and this has been one of the most disappointing teams in the NHL this season. They have added a lot of talent. Marchessault, Stamkos. However, the Predators are not able to produce anything, so they might be a team that needs to try to get rid of some money, right? Then you have the Hurricanes, and they have a whole mess right now with Frederik Andersen, who's out until probably February. But it's just one of those things where they might want to add a goaltender. Now, do I think they're going to go to the Blues for that? Probably not. But at the end of the day, I'm going to still be a little bit optimistic. Then we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, right? Not that good of a team, but Ivan Provorov, who's a defenseman, age 27, might be somebody else, okay? And when you look at a guy like Ivan Provorov, I mean, for whatever reason, I think about the fact that maybe the Blues could add him. Because there is a situation where you can't really play Tyler Tucker, Scott Perunovich, Matthew Kessel, all those guys. It's not going to work out. So maybe invest in a guy like him. But again, it's kind of like one of those things where you have to just keep an open mind, and it is something that is possible. You see, I was actually a little bit surprised about Cam Fowler, but it's worked out, I feel like, quite well, and the Blues made out nicely on that one. But I think that the trades that I have kind of talked about it makes sense. And it's one of those things where I don't know, it just makes sense, right? I mean, if the Blues got somebody like Ivan Provorov, who's on Columbus now, it would just help significantly, and he's one of the top trade, targets. So then I look at guys on our roster, and I'm like, would anybody be interested in a Perunovic? Probably not. Would anybody be interested in a Tucker? Probably not. Or a Kessel? No. Those are guys that you would add onto a package. But then I look at different players that teams might utilize, and I'm thinking of those guys like a Jordan Kyrou. And while I feel like Jordan Kyrou produces a lot for St. Louis, I always said this. If he was on any other team, I feel like he'd be appreciated a little bit more. Now, again, maybe that's just how I view it, but I think he is a really strong player and he would give you back something in return in a trade. But I don't know if it would make sense. And then why is there a part of me, and I know we're not going to get rid of Joel Hofer, but there are so many teams in the NHL right now that are struggling that don't have goalies or their goalies are not producing. And I feel like if it wasn't for having a star like Jordan Binnington in net, then Joel Hofer would be the starting goalie, right? But it's one of those things that I think about as a fan, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what if somebody tries to go after him? I mean, who's to say teams aren't talking? And I'm sure there are teams that are talking about, Hofer and he's in mind. But I don't see Binnington going anywhere. And I've kind of said this before because we talked about contracts in one episode. And I just feel like until his contract ends, he's going to stay here in St. Louis. But what if the right offer comes in? And that is my concern. Because as I'm looking around the NHL, I don't know. I just feel like the trade market, it's going to go absolutely insane. Okay. It's not going to be a trade market where it's quiet and we're waiting until the deadline. We're going to be probably having trades happen tomorrow. Like if we're being completely honest with you. Mackenzie Blackwood, by the way, signed a 5-year extension in Colorado, which is kind of crazy. But the Red Wings fired their head coach today. There is just so much going on. And I don't like it's weird. The hearing, okay. Chris Kreider is another player who's on the Rangers now that rumors have it that he might be linked to the Blues, right? He's amongst names that I've heard that are linked to the Blues. And here's the thing about him. If he is on St. Louis, right, it would help significantly. I mean, they added a bunch of names this offseason, right? But it would help the Blues with maybe putting more of a name. Right, we have Kyrie Thomas, right? Things like that. But he'd be an impactful player too in the playoff run if the Blues end up making it. But this is something that the Blues should maybe look into. And I think for me, reading national headlines of these NHL reporters linking him to only a few teams and the Blues being one of them, I think that's what made me have this conversation. I wanted to save this towards the last of this segment because I want this to be the thing that you remember. A guy like Chris Kreider, okay? I'm going to be very upfront with you. I hate him. Not for the reasons you think. Like, he's a very good player, and I've watched him play a lot of hockey. But he's at 33 years old. He's a left winger, and I mean, he has a lot of experience. I mean, he's a very strong player, okay? There's no going about that whatsoever of what he can bring. He's played 845 games. He has scored 315 goals, 249 assists, racking up those penalty minutes with 564, but he's plus 122 on the ice. So this season, he's played in 30 games, 11 goals, 1 assist, 12 points. Last season, 39 goals, 36 assists, 75 points. That made it for one of his best seasons. His best season was in 2021, 2022, playing 81 games, just shy of those 82, with 52 goals and 25 assists, 77 points, and plus 19. So, as I said, he does bring a lot, and his numbers are actually looking pretty good still. So, not upset about it. He is everything that you kind of want to have as a power forward. And he's really good when it comes to just being speedy, strong skater, and able to move around on the ice quite well. So, that's my thoughts on that. Let's bring it back to reality just a little bit because I do want to talk to you about tonight's game. That is right, because there is a game tonight. But first, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Prize Picks. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your other favorite sports, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. This week on Prize Picks, I'm eyeing the hockey board. I'm looking at Jack Hughes for more than 4 shots on goal and Panarin for more than 1 assist. It's so simple to make my picks and have fun with my friends while potentially cashing out fast. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. Prize Picks, run your game. So tonight, the Blues are hosting the Nashville Predators, as I mentioned, one of the more disappointing teams in the NHL. However, let's talk about it. I feel really good about the Blues tonight. I do. You see, it's one of those things where I look at St. Louis and I just really embrace that win that they had against the Red Wings, right? You saw a great game from Dylan Holloway, right? Getting his hat trick, and I could not be happier about that. But again, Nashville isn't doing so good on this season, okay? And I think that the Blues really need to take that into their advantage in tonight's contest and know that this is a team, despite them having really good players, name-wise on the roster, they're not a strong team. And they're not a team that the Blues should really be that worried about. And I think that it goes into the whole, having Stamkos, right? That's such a big name in Marchessault, right? However, when you have big names like that, it doesn't mean that that it's going to accumulate on the ice, right? This is the first game out of a lot that the Blues and Preds will play each other this year, which says something. I mean, I hate that the Blues haven't played that many Central Division teams yet. Not a fan of that. However, I do believe that this is going to be a game that's going to set the tone. I mean, the Preds are 11, 17, and 7 on the season, while the Blues are 16, 16, and 4. I know. But what I was getting at is that this is going to be a game that is really going to show you here why the Blues are a team that you can't talk out of going to the playoffs. Hale, do you think the Blues have a chance? Absolutely, I think the Blues have a chance of going to the playoffs. But I think that this is the thing where you have to really keep in mind that the Blues need, and I'm saying need, to just continue to be dominant. If they continue to be dominant, I don't see why good things can't happen to them. So here's tonight's projected lineup for St. Louis. On the first line, we have Robert Thomas on the left, Jake Neighbors on the right, Bushi. Then centering the second line is Braden Shen. On the left, it's Dylan Holloway, Dylan Hattrick Holloway, actually. And on the right, Jordan Kyrou. On the third line centering, it will be Oscar Sundquist on the left, Brandon Saad, welcome back, and Zach Bolduc. Finally, that fourth line, we have Matthew Joseph centering, Alexi on the left, and Walker on the right. Finally, let's talk about some defense. We have Cam Fowler and Colton Parayko, Philip Broberg and Jay Falk, and then Ryan Suter and Tyler Tucker, and then Joel Hofer in net. Scratched is Scott Perunovich. Injured is Nick Leddy with a lower body, Foxa lower body, and Texier illness. However, Texier will be a game time decision according to Coach Montgomery. If the forward is out, Saad will play. So if obviously Texier is able to play, then Saad will be out. You know, it's funny. I did an episode yesterday on Locked On Blues, and I talked about my disappointment that I have had towards this season with some of these players. Not all the players, but some of them. And I expressed that. And somebody said, and this is Paul. So Paul is an everydayer because I see Paul comment a lot. So thank you, Paul. Paul said, good take. Hits the notes. Texier looks Tolsy, but under previous staff, his engagement was iffy. Saad does not look engaged. Figure skating out there. Now, Paul, as a figure skater, I have to say, he's not engaged enough. He's been a passenger for more than one season. He gets some goals, but has the ability to just disappear for periods and entire games. And that is the thing about Saad. And I don't think any player goes on the ice, right, and says, how can I blend in? How can I not stand out? How can I look like I disappeared? No player thinks that. However, with Saad, it's becoming a little bit too noticeable enough to where I am not even upset that he's been healthy scratched. Now, do I want him to play? Yes, because I think that he is a good player, and I think that he has a lot of potential to continue to help this team. I just, again, don't see it. So going back, maybe he is somebody that you think about trading. Now, I'm not saying the solution is to trade every player that I'm not a huge fan of at the moment, but maybe get some value back if you're not going to play him. And that's the thing. If you're constantly not going to play certain players, is that wrong of me to think? Is that wrong of me to question? And I really don't think so. I think that when you have a lineup, right, where you're not playing Perunovich really much, you're not playing Saad much lately. I mean, you cannot continue to healthy scratch players and not have the fans question, should we maybe trade them? Now, again, it's one of those things where it's a sticky situation because you don't want to trade a player and not get back anything in return. Well, that happened. But you get what I'm saying. So you want to be smart with your trades as well. So that way you're making a trade that actually makes sense. But again, it's one of those things where I feel confident. I feel good. I feel ready. But I just feel also a little disappointed too that it's come down to this. So not a huge fan of that. But I think too that Tucker has more to prove. And it is a little bit telling that Perunovich isn't really in. So here's the thing. Coach spoke about Texier and said he fell ill during a course of the evening. We're hoping that he'll be better by tonight, but we won't know until later this afternoon. He earned the right to move up to the number one line to give us a different look up there because the Thomas line hasn't been scoring, and then he got out and scored, and he was leading them with purpose and pace. That's why he was rewarded with more ice time. I think it started in Tampa. He was winning battles, and his speed on top of pucks, offensively and defensively, was noticeable. I think his confidence built in Florida, and he made that high-end play for Sundqvist's goal. And that was from Jeremy Rutherford. From The Athletic that posted that quote from Coach. So again, one of those things where it's a little bit frustrating, but at the end of the day, you have to make the best decision for the team. And obviously, Texier has been proving himself. And I know I had him on the naughty list for my Christmas episode, but you have to remember, I can't take just a few games and say that he's been doing great this season because he hasn't. So, sure, I'm happy with what he's been doing, but I'm still not changing him for my list just because it was only a couple games that I saw really good things out of him, and I need more consistency. But you know what gives me consistency? Rocket Money, okay? Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you're paying for twice? Well, that definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in cancellation subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best things is a subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. So, no more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. It is time for my favorite Friday segment. Are we feeling blue? I was going to do a jingle of that, but I decided not to. Are we feeling blue? Was this a good week or a bad week for the STL Blues? This was a good week. Not too much to be upset about this week as it was the holiday break. So I know for me personally, I enjoyed having that time to just relax, but I do miss my hockey. So I'm glad the Blues are playing tonight. However, the last game that the Blues did play was on Monday, so that's why it counts towards this week, because on Monday, again, it was that Dylan Holloway first ever career hat trick, and it was a nice shutout win for Jordan Binnington in net. I do believe that this week the team was able to have a time to relax, and I know that sounds a little silly, right? You know, these are athletes, they should always be ready to go. I can hear what you're saying, okay? However, at the end of the day, they're people too with families, with lives, and sometimes you need to have that little break to kind of recuperate. And I'm hoping that that pays off for this team. I mean, this team has so many talented players, okay? They have too much talent to be where they're at right now in the standings, in the league. It just doesn't make sense to me. So this has to be a good week. Now, okay, let's say the Blues get blown out tonight. Yeah, that it's a bad week. But right now, when I am recording this episode, it is a good week for the Blues. They haven't played the Predators yet. Everything is looking good. And most importantly, that game against the Red Wings just kind of gave me hope again. The team finished that road trip 1-1-1. Not ideal, but they walked away with 3 points, 3 out of 6 points. So basically 50%, which is an F. But in hockey, it's points, so it's fine. See, it sounds worse when you say it like that. But no, overall, this was a good week for the Blues. So, my everydayers, let me know down below how you think this week went for the Blues. Was this a good week? Was this a bad week? Or maybe you don't even know. That is fair too. All right, I will talk to you all probably sometime this week, and I'll do an episode because there's a lot of hockey, and I hate not talking to you after games. So, I'll catch you soon. And like always, let's go Blues.